Hello, everybody. Thank you all so much for joining us today. We are super excited to offer this free webinar to you all and introduce you to Catherine DeLong. Hi, Catherine. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Before we dive into our content for today, I just wanted to let you all know a little bit about CIHS Enlighten. My name is Nicole Ryle, and I'm the Director of Development and Public Programs here at the California Institute for Human Science. We are first and foremost a graduate university and research center focusing on mind, body, spirit, consciousness education. And the CIHS Enlighten sector of our institution is our public programs, where we offer informational webinars like the ones that we are presenting today with Catherine, as well as continuing education and certificate programs and public offerings. So if you're new to CIHS, welcome. I'm so happy that you are here. Please feel free to reach out to me with any questions about upcoming programs. And then for today's program, Making Friends with Death is an informational hour where we're gonna get to know Catherine DeLong a bit more. She is facilitating a 3-part course beginning next week on making friends with death and the art of dying. Catherine is a certified music paleontologist, hospice chaplain, and end-of-life educator based in Salt Lake City. She tends to the emotional, physical, and spiritual needs of palliative patients and their loved ones with harp and voice, which I think we're going to get to experience a little bit today. So I'm very excited about that. Catherine is also a graduate and ordained minister affiliated with the One Spirit Interfaith Seminary. She's a core faculty member of the Art of Dying Institute in Manhattan. And then a little bit about her course. She believes that the time is now for re-envisioning our approach to the end of life and how we die. The upcoming course is an invitation to discover how embracing death may change how we approach both life and death, savoring the preciousness of life and also consciously navigating death. The upcoming classes will provide a safe space to learn more about end-of-life issues. Students will develop tools and understanding to support themselves, their loved ones, and patients in their care. This is a pathway to awakening. Attendees may experience a release of death anxiety and gain an appreciation of the sacredness of the dying process. So thank you so much. That's just a little bit of a little taste of what our upcoming course is going to be comprised of, and Catherine's going to share a lot more with us over the next hour. I just also wanted to say that we will be opening it up to Q&A after Catherine's presentation. If you have anything that you need to pop in the chat box during the presentation, I'll be able to respond to that. But if you could hold questions to the end, and then you can use the Q&A box, or you can raise your hand and ask to be unmuted, and you can speak your question directly to Catherine. Okay. So without any further ado, I will turn it over to Catherine. And yeah, we're very excited to have you. Welcome, Catherine.
Thank you. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here. I appreciate all the emails and all the conversation that we've had, Nicole. These things don't happen by themselves. And I want to thank the California Institute of Human Science. And also Anne Marie Cushing, who's not here today, but she's on the board and she was the one who connected us. So
She is. I know that she's happy that you are here today as well. So yes,
yeah.
thank you, Anne Marie.
I like to start by lighting a candle. So I have my old-fashioned match here. I think it's nice to light a candle to kind of gather our energy here. And I'm going to put this there. Let's take 3 nice breaths into our belly. Deep, deep, so that you feel your waistband of your pants. That's how you know you're breathing into your belly. And And so I think we'll start with a little music. Music has the capacity of calming the nervous system. It can calm both the mind and the body. So you're welcome to close your eyes or not, whatever you're most comfortable with. Let your jaw relax and invite your shoulders to melt while I play for just a couple of minutes. So with that, let's begin. Let's see, I'm working on, you practice these things and it all seems perfect until it isn't. Um, let's see. Nicole, I'm not seeing my PowerPoint. There we
Yeah,
go.
yeah, that's great.
Yeah, thank you all for your patience.
No problem.
So this photo was taken exactly 2 years ago this week by videographer Joe Felt. And it was at the edge of our beautiful Great Salt Lake, which is shrinking. This was part of a project, a video project, where I brought end-of-life music to the edge of a lake on hospice. And we can talk more about that later if you're interested. I've worked for the last 10 years at the bedside of dying individuals. in either a hospital or a hospice setting. Today I serve in the role of music thanatologist for a community-based hospice. Half an hour ago, I received a phone call from one of our RNs. She said that she has a patient who is declining quickly, and both the patient and her husband are in denial as to the outcome. She asked if I could please bring my harp and sing to help usher them into the present moment, where they might accept death as a natural passage. This photo features my music thanatology colleague, Claudia Walker, in Everett, Washington. She's introducing herself to a palliative patient. And I like this photo because it represents to me the spirit of serving vulnerable individuals at the end of life. I think it's useful here for us to talk about terminology. Thanatology is a hard word. People are not sure what they've heard and they're not quite sure how to pronounce it. So Thanatos, is the Greek god of death, and thanatology is the study of death and dying. So a music thanatologist tends to the physical, spiritual, and emotional needs of end-of-life individuals and of their loved ones with harp and voice. My training is specific to providing music to patients who are journeying towards death. Live harp music has the capacity to calm the nervous system, which in turn it might lessen pain, reduce anxiety, fear, perhaps ease shortness of breath as well. And I bring this up so you can understand the nature of my experience with individuals at the end of life. We'll talk specifically about this work and the other ways music can be useful at the bedside in the third class. So our objectives. The Making Friends with Death course offers you the opportunity to be in a safe space where you can discuss and learn more about end-of-life issues. Our intention is for students to come away with a sense of the sacredness of the dying process, in addition to useful information and meaningful tools for use at the bedside, whether you are a professional caregiver or a family member. You might even be the patient. This program is intended to reframe our current concept of dying and reclaim the wisdom and practices of the past. Each class is designed to be deep and rich conversation with an experiential practicum component. Students are invited to join dyads for sharing and witnessing. Classes include aspects of meditation, journaling, poetry, video, PowerPoint, storytelling, in addition to the in-depth discussion I've mentioned. Experience with education around death and dying has proven that this is not a neutral course of study for the human psyche. The study of death and dying is powerful and affecting. These effects are almost always positive, especially when approached in a supportive environment. However, students should be aware that the course content could stimulate personal process, ungrieved losses, or expanded consciousness. These experiences may be best served by support beyond classroom structures, especially if a student has experienced recent or traumatic loss. I snapped this photo of my parents in the spring of 1992. Can you tell that they liked each other? It captures the last time I was with my father. He died of a massive heart attack a few months later across the country from where I was living. My mother, on the other hand, took a 10-year walk with dementia. In the end, she forgot how to swallow. Hers was a very slow decline that finished in 2012, 20 years after my father. Their stories are not particularly extraordinary, but they are important, even sacred, because they are my stories. You also have stories, or will have stories, as loved ones make their transition from this earth. If you are a care provider, you are collecting stories along the way. They are all important, and they inform our experience with loss, whether through death or other losses that present themselves in the course of a lifetime. Loss is a fact of life. The Making Friends with Death course is intended to support each of us in relationship with the true nature of mortality. So, in the first class, let's look briefly at the topics. For our purposes here today, I'm going to focus on one item from each class session. Each of the gatherings will be 2 hours long with a short break in the middle. The first week is dedicated to the preciousness of life, all of it, including the courage to encounter what is true. And it really does take courage to encounter what is true. The poet David Whyte says, "Courage is the measure of our heartfelt participation with life, with another, with a community, a work, a future." He goes on to say that to be courageous is to stay close to the way we are made. It is what love looks like when tested by the simple everyday necessities of being alive. So in our first class, the courage to encounter what is true, we will talk about the arc of life, how denial of death affects us individually and collectively, developing a relationship with death, loving our mortality and what that looks like, finding delights along the way. It takes courage, even for the Grim Reaper, to accept the reality of death, because even the Grim Reaper doesn't think it's going to happen to him, but it's coming our way. This is a New Yorker cartoon. The artist is Mark Stevens. I like to pair the terms birth and death rather than life and death, because life and our living is what happens in between the thresholds of birth and death. They really are two sides of the same coin. These two events are more similar than we want to imagine. On a podcast yesterday, I heard Barbara Carnes, and she's the nurse who wrote the little light blue pamphlet called "Gone from My Sight" that they're handed to many families of hospice patients. This little pamphlet has gone around the world, and she teaches us what death looks like. But in this interview, she described the dying process in the last days of life as labor. And I've never heard anybody give it that term, and I like it. I love it. It's the same word we use to describe a woman's effort during the birthing process. When I see patients nearing the end of life, you can tell they're working hard. It really is, it's work. And so the laboring happens in many ways. This slide features a visual demonstration of the development and decline of the human body over the course of a lifetime. The beginning and the end mirror each other. An infant gains control over their body beginning with the head and moving downward during roughly the first year of life. Learning to walk is the last mastered skill in terms of becoming a human whose orientation is vertical rather than horizontal. On the right side of this graphic, we encounter senior citizens who have a propensity towards falling. That is the number one problem for the elderly. Their legs seem to fail them, but really it's the whole system. Whether by losing their balance, tripping, sight impairment, or the side effect or mismanagement of medication, falls mark an elderly person's descent towards the end of life. And that brings them to a more horizontal existence again. As an individual declines physically, the geography of their world often shrinks to the size of a hospital bed. So, where do you see yourself on this trajectory? I was in a public place with my daughter earlier this week, and she says, "Mom, the sound on your phone is way too loud. You've got to turn that down." Yes, I'm experiencing some hearing loss, and I don't much like it. So maybe I will learn a few things and make friends with that piece of aging. Can America age gracefully? I'm going to read you the first paragraph from this New York Times article that appeared last Thursday. America may think of itself as a young nation, but as a society, it is growing old. Thanks to falling birth rates, longer life expectancy, and the graying of the baby boomer cohort, our society is being transformed. This is a demographic change that will affect every part of society. Already, in about half the country, there are more people dying than being born, even as more Americans are living into their 80s, 90s, and beyond. In 2020, the share of people 65 or older reached 17%, according to the Census Bureau. By 2034, there will be more Americans past retirement age than there are children. And I just want to add that 2034 is 9 years from now. The Times concluded with these challenges in terms of the work ahead. There is much to be done. In Making Friends with Death, we'll be focusing on the statement in green, having an honest conversation about growing old, and also about what that implies in terms of coming to grips with our mortality. In Class 2, we will focus on care for the body, cure for the soul. This is the mantra of 11th century Benedictine monks in Cluny, France, as they cared for patients in their infirmary. It very much aligns with the modern mission of hospice and palliative care. In session 2, we'll dig into what this means for caregivers and loved ones. We'll talk about priorities and decision making, quality of life versus quantity of life, hospice, what is it really? Rituals for a new day. This is an example of a ritual. The woman in this photo is creating a nature altar, which is an example of the use of ritual to help us feel grounded, or even just to help us feel our feelings. The process of collecting each stone and then using them to create beauty is profound. A writer friend of mine was suffering over the effects of climate change, particularly climate change related to our Great Salt Lake, as I mentioned in the opening. Every day for the period of a month, she went for a walk in the foothills overlooking the lake. She collected rocks, pine cones, leaves, feathers, and flowers. And with those natural elements, she created a daily mandala-like piece of artwork right there on the spot to create a sense of beauty, hope, and perhaps healing. Creating an altar in nature underscores impermanence in all things as the piece of artwork disappears over time and goes back into its natural environment. Class 3. Our third class focuses on developing tools to serve yourself and others. A strong how-to component will strengthen your comfort level with death and dying. So this is called Bring All of Yourself to the Threshold. Using the breath to connect and companion music as medicine at the end of life, a topic that I quite love to share. What to say to our loved ones or those that we work with, and how to effectively hold space. Singing at the bedside is an example of something that each one of us can do to bring solace to individuals nearing the end of life. It's not necessary to be a trained singer in order to provide an honest offering. Our breath is the source of our life force, and it's the vehicle for the sound we create through toning, humming, or singing. Sounding with the voice invites the divine into any space. Unfortunately, our culture has moved from bringing singers of music to mostly listeners of music. However, I invite you to explore this medicine. It costs nothing. It's free of side effects and can be given liberally to the entire family. I was with a patient at noon today, and she said, I love it when you sing. I can feel it inside of myself. And she kind of kept saying, I could feel it in here, I feel it in here. And she kept looking for words. And I said, I know what you're trying to say, but this is a felt experience. It's not a thinking experience. And this is a gift that we can give many people. Singing is a wonderful thing. I didn't used to think I was a singer, but when you're in service, it's amazing what you can do when you bring yourself to the threshold. Okay, people, this photo is captured from the trailer for the Barbie movie, and I have to say, my 36-year-old son called me a couple weeks after it came out, and he said, Mom, I can't believe I'm telling you this, but I saw Barbie, and it's really good. So I went to see Barbie. And I'm going to offer a little spoiler alert. There is a moment early in the movie when stereotypical Barbie, who's featured here, asks her friends, do you guys ever think about dying? Then she stops dancing and waits for their reaction. This is the moment she's waiting. The music stops. All the mini Barbies and all the Kens are aghast. But this question is the catalyst for Barbie's and Ken's adventure into the real world. It carries along the narrative of the story. And in a way, our Making Friends with Death course parallels Barbie and Ken's out-of-the-box experience. You will gain knowledge and experience in the real world, which includes all of life, including beginnings and endings. Two things happen when I am in a social situation and someone asks me what I do. And I don't hold back. I use words that begin with D, the death and dying words, and people do one of two things. They either disappear into the wallpaper, kind of like poof, they're just gone, or they step closer and they tell me about the loss of a loved one or a friend, as if hungry to say the words and to have someone listen to them. Down the road, when your friends realize that you are comfortable holding space for end-of-life conversation, they will find you, even at a disco dance party, and they will share their heart with you. They will automatically sense that their pain and their fear and maybe their grief is not scary to you, and that you will be a safe harbor for them. We could end right there, but I want to share a little Making Friends with Death experience that happened within our family last week. Janice has been my cat for 20 years. I rescued her, And then she started telling me what to do. Like many Siamese, she had a big voice and she had lots to say. Janice went to stay with my daughter about a year ago when I did some extended travel, and it turned out that she was happy there. She loved having a dog and another cat and a 6-year-old boy to interact with. The life I offered her was boring by comparison, so we all decided that she should stay there. But even before she went to live at my daughter's, she began losing weight. A few weeks ago, the local vet verified kidney failure. Janice became incontinent of both bowel and bladder. Her movements looked kind of robotic. She objected to being petted or held. It seemed like she just couldn't get comfortable. So we consulted with our vet again and agreed to let her go. And if she were a human, I would say that we chose the medical aid in dying route. I wanted my grandchildren, ages 9, 7, and 6, to do something meaningful that they might remember as part of saying goodbye. The kids cut out hearts and glued them onto colored paper. They wrote notes. And then they loved on Janice and set the cards nearby for her viewing pleasure. Weston's the oldest, and he'd had the most years with Janice. He cried quietly and sat on his mom's lap for a while. Penelope found me, put her arms around me, and patted my back. She offered me the comfort she was sure I needed, and her mom told me that all the way over to my other daughter's home, that Penelope cried. And she wasn't crying because we were going to lose Janice. She was crying because she was feeling bad for me. And she said, "What's Grandma going to do? What's she going to do without Janice?" And she literally took me in her arms. It was the sweetest thing I've ever experienced. James was busy being 6. Janice lived at his house, so he had some more time, a couple more days with her. So 2 days later, the vet came. He visited my daughter's home. The photo of James on the left was taken just minutes after Janice was euthanized. James was curious. And he's wearing his ninja costume because why not? But he scratched her head. We watched him lift her front paw, and he allowed gravity to have its way, and the paw just fell back to the pillow she was laying on. He watched and experienced the natural effects of what it's like to be with a dead body. And we let him take the time he needed to understand she was gone. He was totally engaged as he helped me shroud the body. And you notice who else is present in this photo. Max, the dog, was there for all of it. And it was all very peaceful and calm. Here's James arranging the flowers under the ribbons that were holding the shroud together. I started putting them under the ribbons, and he's like, "Grandma, no, let me do it." And then he pulled the body in his wagon to her final resting place. We put more flowers on the grave at the base of a little oak tree that was planted at the site. It will forever be known as Janice's tree. And I share this story with you because it's foundational in helping the next generation make friends with death. I want to finish by reading this poem by King Neswa. He was a scholar, philosopher, warrior, architect, poet, and ruler of the city-state of Texcoco in pre-Columbian era Mexico. And this was before the Spanish conquest, before they ever entered the scene. It's called I Am Sad. I am sad. They told me I should perish, like the flowers I cherish. Nothing would remain of me, nothing of my name, nothing of my fame. But the gardens I planted are still young, and the songs I sing, still they will be sung. So thank you. That ends the presentation, and I'm going to stop my screen share and turn this back over to Nicole.
Well, thank you very much, Catherine. I think that was a beautiful preview of what's to come. And I loved how you went through each kind of course and gave a little teaser about what would be covered. I just had a question as far as um, who who should attend this course that's coming up. It's obviously, you said, people who are taking care of people in end of life, but I mean, do you think that even if you don't have somebody in your life right now that is nearing the end, that it can benefit you and your relationship as we grow and we get older and we think about our relationship with mortality?
Absolutely. I actually think life is more fun when we've spent some time maybe making some plans for ourselves,
Yeah.
doing some interior work, and just simply making ourselves comfortable with conversation. Um, there are times in our life, you probably are at an age, Nicole, where you have friends whose parents are dying.
Yeah. Yeah.
And at different times, we get to attend funerals and we get to be a support to people we love. And if we're comfortable doing that, everyone wins.
Mm. Yeah, it's almost like it would teach you to hold space for friends or people going through it
Mhm.
in need. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I loved also that daily mandala or the daily ritual. I think that is a really beautiful way to just embrace each day, right? And as you're nearing the end, you don't know when the last day is going to be, but you have these rituals that kind of ground you and remind you of the presence and the beauty in each moment, the mindfulness, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did one of these nature altar mandalas with my grandchildren when one of their grandfathers died. And there was a memorial service up in the foothills where he loved to be as a child. And so we made a place and swept the dirt so it was clean, and then put rocks, and oh, it was lovely. And the kids were younger then, and I really wanted them, I wanted to help create a memory
Yeah.
because they wouldn't remember any of the words.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and I wanted to tie, your course in with the idea of studying consciousness and really that's a lot of what our coursework at the university deals with is research, putting the science with the spirituality, but the consciousness, the mindfulness of death, right? And the whole experience of it with the breath, with the music, with the ritual, it really brings in that sense of consciousness and embodiment of life and death,
Yeah.
and knowing that maybe when death does come, right, it's the next reality, right, that sometimes we can think about exploring too. That's we
Yeah.
just had a conference a few weeks ago and they were exploring alternate realities and different dimensions and things like that as far as consciousness goes. So death is just maybe the next step.
Well, we all get to do it.
Yeah.
Every one of us. I sometimes like to say that the um, the death rate is one per person. And we it's useful if we have some tools to help ourselves and to help others, because we're all connected. And so let's help each other.
Yeah, yeah, that's beautiful. Well, I also would like to open it up to any questions from our audience. Before we do that, I wanted to also offer everybody who's here live today a $25 discount for our course. The course begins a week from today. Tuesday, the 19th. Our webinar today runs from 3 to 4 p.m. The course itself will be 2 hours every other Tuesday for 3 sessions. So I think the dates are back here, the 19th, the 3rd, and the 17th. So you can email me. I will put up my email in the chat box, and you can email me for that discount. And please feel free to share this recording with family and friends who might be interested. You could also reach out to Catherine to learn more about her work as well.